Wondering, Stefan, because I did my homework last night. I listened to the album again, and I love
Oh,
it. It's
thanks.
yeah, it's I've listened to it several times. Um, I've got the you guys made a video for, I believe, in the DAW. Is that what it's called? Am I mistaken?
Lost in the Dawn.
Lost in the DAW. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I really love that track. There's something very it belongs in a movie soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I
it's
think a lot of the
so
album's cinematic.
Yeah.
yeah, right. Am I on track there a little bit if I say there is like a cinematic element to this album?
I think so. I mean, we've talked about this before because this whole album, it's not the traditional songs you would usually listen to or find anywhere on radio or wherever. I think it's more like little pieces, little scenes set together, working out a certain mood. And I think this is also what makes it so interesting, maybe for movies, uh, things like this, because it works somehow in a similar way.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking like
Yeah.
Rain on Jupiter doesn't necessarily have like it's not melodic, but there's a
Mm.
beat to it. There's a rhythm, and
Yeah.
you're capturing something, the imagination of the listener. And so it is, I do like that element of being like transported to another place. And so I feel like that's the theme, but each track is very different also. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, how did that, like, what's your process? And I know I'm getting like way ahead of ourselves here, and
We got
I'm
time.
yeah, I'm recording right now, so I'm gonna, just we can just start the conversation now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just curious, like, what your process is, and where does this where does your love of the like avant-garde and the obviously the kind of electronic music influence, where does that come from? Like, what is that your is what you like to
Well,
listen
for
to?
me, for
Yeah.
me, it comes from Stefan.
Well, sure.
So
Right, right, right.
it's like
Okay.
it's directly here. I haven't done, like I've played music and bringing it back to Korea per what you were saying earlier.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Yeah,
I've
yeah.
played I've played quite a bit in Korea. I've played out in a lot of clubs and stuff. I think the biggest place I played is FF. But all the thing, even as much as I've played here, it's always just been either playing someone else's music, or if I wrote a little like set myself. I had my own little thing for a bit that I fronted, but none of it was really. It wasn't very inspired stuff. I haven't done anything with real intention since I was like a university student, like my
Hmm.
early 20s. It's always just been a socializing thing. You play so you can go and hang out with your friends, maybe get, not even trying to make a buck. You're just trying to get free beer, basically.
Right.
you know,
If you get free drinks, that's a win. That's a good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know a lot about I didn't know a lot about audio engineering, production, things like this. And then I met when did we meet? Like
I think 4 years ago, maybe.
yeah, we met 4 years ago here in Seoul. And he has experience and background with doing things with software and music production. And yeah, I don't know who approached who first, but it was, hey, you want to come over and just try to see what happens if you play a guitar with,
Yes.
his rig. And yeah, it's a lot of improvisation. A lot, I mean, it's mostly
It's so that's
improvisation.
funny to me because, well, Stefan, I'll let you answer the same question. Like, because obviously you're from Germany. I know that
Yeah.
electronic music, that is like the center, Berlin is the center of electronic music. Um, is that where your influence comes from? Just that's what you guys listened to in high school and university, or is there other influences that are, you know, driving your artistic vision, I guess?
I think for me, it wasn't really a big thing in high school. High school was, at my age, it was mostly like Europop and things like this, which I
Hmm.
never really liked. But
Yeah, I'm not a fan
I
either
think
myself. Yeah.
I don't know, when I was maybe 7 or 8, I got pushed into liking Depeche Mode which
Okay.
just started my love for electronic music and also kind of industrial style electronic music and everything involved from there. I got more into some experimental music, more into industrial and the harder stuff. And then I started getting interested in synthesizers. How is everything built? And with going through synthesizers, also being part of actually making some synthesizers and some software early on. I also got a fascination in mostly sound and soundscapes.
Yeah.
And then it pretty much evolved from there. I had a fairly long break with not doing very much with it, but then pretty much in Korea, my main interest came back to revive that. And yeah, I started building up my synthesizer setup here. And
Yeah.
that is, I think we already knew each other when I started with that.
Yeah, I think so.
And-
I remember you were building your first, like putting the first modules and things.
Yeah, and I think we both knew that we were not only liking music, but also have been making music and sound to some degree before. So I think when I actually started building a hardware setup, we started talking about maybe we could try something together, just for fun. Because I mean, to be honest, I don't really like guitars, the sound of guitars and things. And I think you were the same at that time with most synth stuff. So it was an interesting combination finding together.
Yeah, for
Feeling
me,
the-
it's always just been if I can't, I mean, I can appreciate it at a distance, but if I can't like define the sound, I don't know, it has like a less of an appeal to me. But what I like about this, which fascinated me, I'm just thinking back to when you were building the synthesizer. I started to understand what it was. I never looked at a Eurorack before. I never understood this idea of generative music. And I came in here and you were like, check this out. And do you understand any of this, Jack? Like how this works?
What do you mean by
It's
generative
really-
music? I mean, are you talking like, is this not AI or anything like that? You're talking, what do you mean by generative music?
I think you could answer this probably better than I could.
I mean, what you do with a setup like this is typically because you have all your modules and your elements you put together, and they all have different functions. Some create sound, some create modulation. So it's basically electricity that sends. It's like turning a knob somewhere, but it does it for you, and you just basically tell it how much of the voltage will influence which sound, which element, and then pretty much you start with a very simple sound, and yeah, then you try to control it, go through different stages of modulation, sometimes effects, or you start doing melodic things.
And the permutations can multiply,
Yeah.
and it grows like a fractal. So you can start off with a very simple set of parameters, and it just blossoms, and it can keep on folding on itself, and it just weaves, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. If anybody's listening is interested in this topic, you can just go on like YouTube and type in generative music or generative modular synthesizer, Eurorack, any of these words, and you'll see people that are experimenting with this. But it presents a really huge problem to someone accompanying it, because you don't really know whatever is coming next. It's like playing with very progressive, like freestyle jazz musicians or something like this. You don't know where the other musician is going to be leading you. You don't know where things are going to be becoming intense, but there's something natural about it at the same time. Like things are growing, they get louder, they get more aggressive, they mellow, they fold. So it was just fun to jam with guitar. Like I started to figure out a way to do it. I had a looper pedal so I could layer.
Yeah,
So I could set up a couple of experiments and then peel back and forth.
I thought the track Green Coffee has the most kind of melodic guitar element to it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was really catchy. That one just kind of really grabbed me. The first time I listened to the album, and it happened again last night when I listened to it again. I see exactly what you're saying. To me, it's almost like a wave. It starts, like you said, very slowly and kind of quietly, and it just builds and builds and builds, pressure and pressure and pressure, and then there's a kind of release, and then the song kind of fades out, and it all kind of builds that way. Is that just how electronic music, is that how all generative music will end up like that? Or can you control the waves? You know, can you add 3 crests in there if you want to?
I think that's pretty much the beauty of modular, because you can do it that way. You can probably achieve almost the same doing it completely differently. Or you just make a pop song with it if you have the right gear, or just plain techno, and everything is possible. It's just deciding what you want to do. And especially with things that are evolving, where you start using a lot of effects and layers on top of each other, then it also gets a bit difficult, because you need to make choices when to cut out, because it's also like, it sounds evolving and generative, and it's very easy to lose control. So everything just
you could have
kind of falls
10-minute
apart because
songs
it's just,
easily, right? I mean, you could,
yeah, but you can also have like 10-minute noise within 30 seconds easily. So it's
that's
very
true,
hard
that's true.
to keep it under control.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like the track Rain on Jupiter, for example, that is basically just me unplugging one of the plugs. That's the sound everything is based on.
That's
There's
how you
no
capture
other
that
sound
rain, the
it's
pitter
thrown out.
patter. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and
interesting.
everything else is just layered and working on itself.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples of it that's on the record is Deshane. There's the second track.
Yes, I love that
Music
that
line.
track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really wet tapestry that the guitar is playing over, that's all generative. It's things are kind of, I don't know how much of that were you actually manipulating in real time. That was, or was that just running away?
I have to admit, I don't remember.
Yeah, you might not have been in the room. That would have been something where like he said something, like went off to get a beer or something, and then like I'm just still playing.
Yeah.
Also, regarding the composition, that's worth mentioning. We haven't really talked about that. The way these things were created for this album, I don't want to say it was not intentional, but you have to imagine, picture like a jam session where we're here playing for 6 hours, 5-6 hours.
Sometimes 8.
Yeah, and we just run the tape. So we're not using a computer for anything that's being built for the most part on the album, but we're recording everything into a DAW that's on a computer. So we just have the tape running in the back. And then after we did that for about half a year, we sat down with all the tape, and then we just took from it to create compositions. So for example, the song like Garmonbozia, that really bizarre, almost like trumpety, trombone-y thing going on, that's something that came off of the synthesizer that I found that I liked. And I had some good, like these jazz chords that I played over it. They didn't quite line up, and so my mission was like to try to make them like congruent, just to balance it. So I sit with the DAW and I'm slicing it up. So ultimately, like that 6-7 hour session got reduced to, how long does that song? Like a minute 40?
Like a minute and a half or something. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah,
so you guys process. So you guys are on essentially an exploratory mission when you're, it's like, let's see what we can find, This is interesting because, the traditional songwriting, the songwriting that Ryan, you probably are used to, is like, hook, chorus, bridge, hook, chorus, the end, whatever. That's a very different, but Depeche Mode also wrote 3-minute songs that were #1 hits using electronic. So I'm wondering, are you interested in doing something that is more conventional in the future, or are you guys have you not thought about that?
I think we talk about it a lot, but every time we sit down, it's more fun to experiment. I mean, when you're listening to that record, what you're hearing, I mean, we added parts to the synthesizer during that process. I got a new guitar pedal during that process. Like it was just discovery the whole way.
Yeah.
The guitar solo on, what's the song with the really aggressive fuzz pedal solo? I can't think of the name of it.
Is it?
It's the most German sounding one.
Is it Entourage? Maybe. Is that?
What was it?
I can't think of the name. That's the old name for it. We renamed it on the album. We don't even know the names of our songs. It's terrible.
I'm sorry. I
Let's
should.
see. No, somebody should have reviewed this. But anyway, there's a point at which I'm playing a really kind of cock rocking, super tight jeans guitar solo,
Right, right.
like ultimate fuzz. I mean, that idea came about when we were trying to work with the primary synthesizer track, trying to turn into some type of a song, couldn't find another part to put to it. We were doing that not here, that was over at my house. So I've got like a little setup in my place too. And I got plugged in the guitar and I'm trying to play on top of it. Nothing quite sounds right. And then the two of us just started geeking out, putting in more and more guitar pedals and switching out like all these crazy distortions and stuff, layering distortions. And eventually I got this thing where I could just do really badass squeals. It was just like straight to like Eddie Van Halen. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this.
This feels right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I
fun.
appreciate your, talking to me, because this is kind of a lesson for me on electronic music. It's not my realm of expertise. But I am wondering if I could just, like, when I was listening to the album, there's a couple of just some influences, and you can just shoot them down if I'm just totally off base here. But am I mistaken if I heard a Radiohead influence? Maybe Kid A?
I mean,
or...
I'd be lying if I didn't say it. I know it's like so vanilla these days, but I think still I love their work.
Yeah, yeah. It just and also maybe like I don't know if you guys ever listened to the Moby soundtrack for Heat, the movie Heat. It has a very nice, a very interesting kind of build like that. So I'm just wondering if, like, you have your influences are Depeche Mode and maybe industrial.
That's actually something that we cross on, which is kind of cool. We've talked about before we sat down to make the album. It was after we had jammed. We did a record exchange. We actually would do like silent listenings where we'd sit down and be like, all right, I'm going to subject you to like 20 minutes of whatever I want to choose. And then you got to stay silent, take your notes, think about what you want to think. Because we didn't have, we grew up in really different places. And we wanted to, you don't know where you're going to cross and what is it exactly we want to create. So we tried to be intentional originally, I guess.
Yeah.
But there was some very few points at which we crossed over. Depeche Mode was one of them. I mean, my biggest influence for the guitar style that I'm doing, the scales I'm using, the layers, I would say, is like Tortoise or Bundy K. Brown, like a lot of the kind of progressive independent stuff on the Thrill Jockey label from 2000 in Chicago and that scene,
right,
the Midwest. And that's just not that's probably doesn't even speak much to you, and you're also from the Midwest. It was such a small little microcosm.
Right.
So it's not something that's easy to even, if I show him a handful of songs, it's like, yeah, but also you had to be there. And it's the same thing for him.
Out
He's
of
showing me
context.
things, and it's kind of like, well, you had to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can appreciate it, but I'm abstracting it. He's abstracting what I'm showing. But Depeche Mode is one thing that we both like. We're like, yeah, man, Depeche Mode.
And Nine Inch Nails as well.
Yeah, Nine Inch Nails.
Oh,
absolutely.
9 Inch Nails. Yeah, that first album is what is it? Pretty Hate Machine, I think.
Pretty Hate Machine. Yeah.
Yeah. God,
I'm just a sucker
album.
for melody in general.
Yeah.
I like strong melodies, strong hooks, a single note of hooks like Depeche Mode does. Policy of Truth, man. That hook.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll blast that in my car.
Yeah. With your spiky hair. Yeah. So Stefan, obviously you're a gearhead guy. Like, you love, I think your love for putting the stuff together is probably equal to your love of making the music. Would that be a correct statement? Or
what gave you that idea?
I don't know. He just strikes me as like, you strike me as a person that just really loves the technical side almost as much as you love the artistic side of it. And so, I guess it's an interesting synthesis, because I think, like you said, Nine Inch Nails is your one of your inspirations, and I think Trent Reznor is also like that. He's a guy that could probably build a setup and then start making music on there. And I'm just wondering for you, is it does the love come from just the gear, putting it together, making it, and then you know, where does it cross? Like, where does the kind of construction element and then the artistic element, where is that line for you? Because it sounds like it's blurred in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I'm not really that big of a fan of gear itself. I just always have this massive fascination of figuring out how things work and then starting to work with the basis. And hardware synthesizers are pretty much the basis for all that's electronic. And if you take those apart into modules, it's even more so. And then moving on from that, because I've been involved in music for pretty much all my life, but I never learned to play an instrument right, for several reasons, but I never did. So I always got around that by figuring out the tools, how sound works, and then just make the tools work for me in the way I want them to.
I see.
And I
So
think
you don't read music? Like if someone just set you down on a piano and said play this piece, that's not in your
Well,
wheelhouse, would you say?
I can read the music. I'm just not good enough at actually playing the piano to play it. I
Right.
could
Yeah,
play it
so
slowly, but
we easily, I mean, we have conversations all the time when we're putting things together. You know, what key is this? You know, what time signature? There's, in fact, on the album, we've done some things that were a little challenging. We have one piece that's in 7/8. Um, I think that's, I'm not sure what else is going on, whatever was captured, but we definitely can have conversation on that level. So like the
Right,
basics
right.
are
Okay.
way easy.
Yeah, he's
Modes,
being
everything.
humble. I'm sure your music skills are quite good. You know, I'm just a Luddite, you know, I don't really know that much, and I'm a tinkerer. I'm a noodler on the guitar. So never learned to read music, but I love, you know, when I meet real musicians like you guys, it's fascinating to me. Um
Well,
and
you know,
yeah.
to bring it back to Korea, just, you know, for the listeners, you know, picking up here, you know, Jack plays music also. He plays guitar. Um, Now is such a great time to get into learning how to use hardware or software, and it's especially cool if you live in a giant city like this. And I'll
Hmm.
tell you why. Since I've met him and since we've been doing this project, um, I've gone from being the guy that just I don't read the manual. That was my it stresses me out,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
You know, and if the thing is too complicated and I have to read the manual, then I'm not using that thing. That's sort of how I roll. So I'm exaggerating. You know, I'm just saying it's not fun.
Hmm.
But from working with him, I've started to take an interest into like deep diving into menus. I finally feel I really have a handle on the DAW that I've been using for my own little home recordings for years. Now I feel like I actually have some control over this animal. I
Right,
can do the
right.
things I want to do. Um, Last summer, I bought a 404, which I never would have thought of sampling. No way. Not in my wheelhouse. That is not something. Oh my God, it's my favorite thing in the whole world. And yeah, so bringing it back to Korea, what I wanted to say about being in a big city, and what you could consider is you can easily try things. And if you don't like the hardware or whatever you're picking up, you can sell it for almost what you buy it for because there's
Yeah,
so many people in the used market here.
yeah.
And yeah, it's just like revolving doors of stuff. It's
Right.
great.
Uh,
Like if you go on Carrot, Dungan, if you're in Korea, if you're in
yeah,
Seoul, Dungan, Carrot with a K, it's an app for used stuff. We probably talked about this like in an economics episode or something.
I think we have.
But
Yeah,
yeah, just type in, you know, guitar pedal and it's like go take your pick.
yeah. To
And you
choose
can
the one that's
sell
closest to your
really,
house. Yeah.
yeah, and you can sell really boutique stuff. I sold a guitar pedal on there for over 400,000
Wow.
that I bought, I think, for probably like 450, and I
Okay.
used it for half a year. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like this. So that's one reason. I mean, that would probably be similar in most big cities, but I think
Sure.
in Korea there's a lot of bedroom rockers. You know, people with home studio setups like this,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, there's Nagwon. Do you know Nagwon
Is that the
Sijong, the
local?
music center?
Yeah. 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 I know what you're talking about. It's like a street
Yeah,
of.
it's
Yeah. all musical
It's like they
instruments.
took it's a mall
It's
like
Guitar Center, the mall version, basically, right?
I think
it's
it's
like
actually, I'm not sure if it's the biggest, but it's one of the biggest music instrument malls in the world. It's
yeah,
massive.
it's like if you took 50 Guitar Centers and just like detonated them.
Right,
It's
right.
just it goes
You could
forever.
buy a Les
Like if you
Paul
want,
and a didgeridoo in the same day if you wanted to, something like that.
you would have your choice of Les Pauls and didgeridoos, and you could pick up
Right.
like three different size kalimbas on your way, to get a coffee.
Yeah,
It is so much fun. We've spent a lot of time there.
And I think
yeah.
it's also really inspiring to go there because not only do you have like new instrument stores, but also there's so much used stuff, things you would never see
Yeah,
anywhere else. There's just, especially in big sections, there are so many shops that just have old stuff stacked
just
on piles. And
derelicts. Yeah, yeah. If you're, especially if you have any interest in electronic, and if you can solder, it's a place to go
Good Lord.
hunting.
I don't even know where to start. I'm just looking at your setup right there, your rig, and it's like there's 500 wires and lights are going off and stuff. I'm going to ask you one like last music question, and then I kind of want to dig into Stefan's journey of like how you ended up in Korea. This is so fascinating to me. But when it comes to like electronic music and building a synth, I mean, how do you decide on the sound? You have 5,000, 25,000 choices. Is that not Does that not give you anxiety as an artist? Like for me, it's almost like the more choices you have, the worse it gets. You know what I mean? It's like I just want my one acoustic guitar and I know what it sounds like and I never change the strings and it's all good. But this idea of like so many choices. How do you go about that?
I think most of the times, unless you want to do something very specific that you have in your head, we've started our sessions this way always. I was usually starting just to noodle around. The first 1 or 2 hours were horrible because it's just random, more or less random screeching and annoying sounds. And then you just start dialing in, figuring out, okay, I don't like this. Maybe I'll try something else. And at some point, usually something pieced together and
Stick almost. Good Lord. It's like a documentary on Netflix or something. All right, so let's jump back into it. So I was asking you, I guess a good place to start or to continue would be to ask you, Stefan, how did you end up in Korea? What brought you here?
it's fairly simple. It was 2015. Um, when I more or less I had a big cut in my life, so my old household and we just kind of dissolved everything, and I had to decide where to go, and I couldn't really decide, and I was usually um, preferring to go to the Mediterranean, to Malta, stay there, but then I had this whole option of, okay, if I ever want to go somewhere else completely, now would be the time. And I always had this idea of going to East Asia for a while, at least having a look for a few weeks or months. So
Yeah.
I ended up in Seoul for 3 months, and the 3 months have gotten a bit longer, and I've been here
Yeah,
ever
just a little
since.
bit.
Yeah, as it
Just
goes,
just
as
100
it
months
goes.
longer. Yeah. Um,
Jack, you can relate to that, I think.
well, absolutely. Everybody I know came here for 1 year and stayed
Yeah,
for 20.
that was
Yeah.
always that's the plan. You don't
That's
plan for more than 1 year. It's 1 year.
No, you come for a
Yeah,
year, you make some money and you split, and that's the whole point. And
yeah,
then
that's what you're gonna do. That's what you're gonna do. You're
it's
gonna go
coming
home.
soon after, yeah, probably year 25. I'll do that. Um, so I guess it just like East Asia is that's a pretty far leap. The Mediterranean would be like a half step, from Germany, but all the way here is kind of everything is I mean, did you speak any Korean before you came or had you
No, I
no,
could
okay.
read it.
You
I
could
could
right,
learn
okay,
reading
okay.
Hangul, but that's, I mean, honestly, that's a long afternoon of studying. So it's
Right,
not
yeah,
really
on the
that big
plane
of a
ride,
deal.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which was also interesting to realize because I was so proud I could read it. And then you end up here and, well, you can read it, but you still don't understand any of the words. It doesn't really
Right.
help you that much.
You can pronounce it, but it's, yeah, as far as like understanding, yeah. Even after how's your Korean now? Do you study, do you continue to study?
It's pretty bad. I don't really speak any, but also because I'm very quiet, it's really difficult for me. I'm understanding
Yeah,
more and more.
you comprehend quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watch it.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's interesting. So how much gear did you bring with you when you came in 2015? I mean, you were, I imagine you were only planning to come for a few weeks or a few months, so you can't have a whole synth set with you when
No,
you traveled.
when I came here the first time, I had one suitcase, and I had back then it was my Mac Mini in there. Because even in the place I went to, it was a one room I rented. I had a screen, so I had like a basic computer setup. I had my PlayStation with me,
Okay,
you brought the
nice.
PlayStation.
and
Essential.
my diving and freediving gear in another bag. But that was it. And then I
Okay,
got here a bunch more stuff here, and um, I didn't really start with gear acquisition until I moved to a bigger place, because in these tiny one rooms, it just doesn't make any sense. You have no space at all.
right. You'd be climbing over it. Yeah. There's, I mean, it's fascinating to me that you stayed for as long as you have here, because I mean, Korea can be, I mean, it doesn't have the weather that Thailand has, you know, or Vietnam or something like that, because you get the winters here. And also the culture can be a little bit closed off, if that makes sense. You know, it's harder to penetrate. I feel like other countries are a little more open armed, you know, when it comes to you know, visitors. But Korea, you kind of have to earn the right
Hmm.
to get in there a little bit. I don't know if you feel that, or how you know, I guess what is it that just kept you here for 7 years? I'm really putting you on the spot
I
here. I
mean,
apologize.
yeah.
Don't want to get into too many like personal details and things,
No,
but
no, it's all
Yeah.
right. I mean, we don't have to I don't have to dig deep that, you
I
know,
mean,
into
the
that.
very simple reason is I like it here. I like Seoul as a city. It works well for me. I like staying up at night. I'm not a morning person, so it's very easy to get around. Even if you don't speak any Korean, you can get along almost anywhere pretty easily. Paperwork is difficult, but I think that's the
Mm,
only thing really. And I mean, the food is great, but
yeah.
the weather, I don't know. It's You can argue about it. I'm a summer person, so I like it in summer here. It's
Oh,
really
do
nice.
you? Oh,
I
wow.
really like summers
I
here.
loathe it. Yeah.
Um, and then um, fall, I think, is one of the best seasons ever here, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just this mix of it's a nice late summer in Europe. It's just super nice, and instead of being only 2 weeks like you would have it in Germany, it's almost like 2 months of just
Yeah.
nice weather and nice temperatures, and even going outside at night, you don't really have to bring more than maybe a light jacket.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
right now this is my season in Korea. Like
Oh,
even just coming over
100%
here
for
today,
me.
I love this.
I like the
I love this.
briskness, you know, like I think you said you like a light summer. I like a good Minnesota fall, you know, like a,
Yeah.
yeah, just a little
I don't know what
colder
it's
than,
like in
yeah.
Minnesota, but from northeastern Wisconsin, the transition seasons, the
Yeah.
fall and the spring, I feel like they're usually 1 week long, sometimes one day. It's like there's the leaves are changing. All right, now it's snow.
Now
Just
the
like
snow.
boom.
Yeah, and it's done.
But here it just rolls and rolls and rolls. I think
Yeah.
part of it is the leaves. I feel like they hang on longer in Korea. Is that true? Do you
They
think
do,
so?
because we just
Right?
are,
Am I
yeah.
not crazy?
No, I think so, because it's just, it's, is it December now, or no, it's still November, but
Yeah, just about.
we still have some trees, like, or
Yeah,
some
like the
leaves on our
ginkgos,
trees. Yeah.
the Namu, the ginkgos, they hang on to the golden, like prehistoric looking leaves.
Yeah.
Those will hang on for a really long time. They
Mm.
shed for a long time, and then I don't know what they're called in Korean, Japanese maples, the red ones,
Hmm.
the purpley ones.
Yeah.
Um, they almost get like ashy colored before they fall. If I was just on campus Thursday, looking out the office window on the mountainside, it's still more than half full, I'd say.
Yeah,
Namsan
yeah.
is still like
No, it's
half
got to
full. I
be.
went for a run
It's
on
got to
Thursday
do
night.
with the warm weather stays.
So
It hangs in
nice.
there. September, October is
Yeah.
pleasant. Like it's just
Yeah, the
nice.
air is nice and
Yeah.
dry. Sorry, I go off about the weather here forever.
Yeah, no, I'm I'm with you guys. Well, okay, let me go back. I know I'm all over the place here, and I apologize. I'm a terrible interviewer. But
Yeah, you're the worst, man.
I was watching your video, and it was almost like a drone shot directly
That
down on a street, and there are like cars that are coming, but it's animated in this like super simple, almost like an Etch-a-Sketch. You know, do you remember Etch-a-Sketch? Like
yeah.
it's just black and white. Is that how did you
Can we tell them
are you
where
an
it was shot or
animator as
not?
well? Like,
So
is that another one of
well,
your passions, your hobbies?
should I demystify? And I
Is
could
it an
pretend
app? If it's an app,
no, I could
okay.
pretend I spent like 3 months on the video, but I think I spent like 10 minutes on that. It's just I took a drone shot I have, and then I put layers and layers on and of effects on it, because when we were releasing, we didn't have any form of video or anything. I was just, okay, which song do we need at least one song with a video. So I just, because I take quite a lot of drone shots and drone photography videos, so I have a lot of material. So I just looked for something that was long enough and calm enough, and then just layering effects on top of it.
I was wondering if you would tell them where you took the picture. Where
No.
that? No. Yeah.
It's
Well,
got it's
Top
Korea,
top
right?
secret drone footage.
Yeah,
It's got to be Korea, because it looked like I mean, it looked like it was very. This is why I think this is a Korean related question, is because when you I don't know, like the synthesis of the music and the video that you created, it does really scream Korea to me, you know, the urban environment, the cars, just the never ending kind of, continuation of traffic. And I don't know, it just worked really perfectly together. So I know sometimes serendipity happens and you just, create something really awesome, and that doesn't take a long time. But it didn't seem that way. It seemed like it was very well, thought out, and just it was great. I love that. Yeah.
That song actually is the only song, I think. Yeah, the only song, or only song on the entire album where I'm doing something with a synthesizer, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that sounds like a saxophone on there,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Okay.
that's actually me running. I don't know how I managed to do it. It was my first attempt using, this kind of stuff, but I managed to set up this tone, and I had one of the knobs that I don't know what it was assigned to or what it was doing, but as I turned the knob, it's just a single, really tiny knob, like you'd have like on a little stereo, and as I'm turning it, it's stepping, so it's not smooth.
Yeah.
It's like changing in pitch, and it sounded so much like a jazz saxophone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
That's
just
awesome.
kind of like twisted it and played it, and that's what the whole melody's from. It's just that one knob,
Wow. So
and I'm making the whole melody by twisting this knob. Yeah,
that's
it's
amazing.
not a saxophone. That's just that.
That's
all
what
it
that is.
is.
I'm gonna listen to that again,
Yeah.
and I want
It's a
to
weird. It's
now that I
weird.
know that, I want to listen to that song again. Is that song Entourage? Is that the name of the song, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken? Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for our listeners out there, you guys got to check out the album. Do you want to tell them what the name of the album is, by the way?
Oh, yeah. The name of the name of the project, our band, is called That's Spanish For, which maybe isn't the most clever name. It's a long
Yeah.
story, but that's the name of that. That's the name of the act. That's us. That's
It's the
Spanish
duo.
For.
Okay.
Yeah, with an apostrophe, which makes it difficult to save files. And the name of the album is the Moo Moo Choo Choo,
Right, the Moo Moo
which
Choo Choo. Yeah,
again has
that's
a
Korean. Like I can see it written in Korean perfectly. Mew Mew Choo Choo. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, we had some cover art designs where there was a train made out of cows originally. That was something you drew. Why do we axe that? That was brilliant. And it said the Moo Moo Choo Choo, I think, was coming out of the steam of the
I
train.
think we were never really happy with it in the end, or never really happy
Yeah,
enough.
Was it
was
too
so close.
literal? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, maybe too on the nose. I
Yeah.
loved it. And then you kind of tasked me. You're like, we need a album art, or maybe I'd volunteered for it. So I started just working collage stuff. I didn't know what to do. Like I don't know how to like make something. I like painting and stuff like this and drawing and whatever, but I couldn't make like something to represent the music right. So I worked on it all freaking day. He looks at it, he's like, nah. I'm like, yeah, I know, nah, right? And then he goes home. This is over at my place. He goes home, and in the time it takes to go home, I get a text message with the album cover that he made, which is what it is
The one,
now. And
yeah,
it's
with
like
the
perfect. And I loved it right away. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, it's awesome. So
yeah.
again, it
Is
pays to work with somebody who knows design.
is the album like a it's supposed to be a representation of like a mod, like a keyboard kind of what are those like sound effects things that
It was
you
the
know?
intention, like a 16-step
It's
pad.
yeah, that's
The
what I'm trying to
intention
say.
is just we had the two photos which I liked, and I don't know why I had this this like, is it 16 or I don't even know.
I don't
I
know
think
anything about
it's
a record.
16 or 25
12, yeah,
boxes.
16 or 20, something like that.
Um,
Yeah.
and I just had this in my head, and again, out of a little bit of desperation, because I think on the next day we wanted to send it off to the stores because we had our own deadlines set and didn't want to move them at all. So
Yeah.
I was more of this, like having this idea, and then just making something as quick as possible that we both like. And that's
I
pretty
think
much it.
I think you guys made the right call. That's I love that album cover. It's really cool. It works perfectly.
I
I
just
mean,
checked. It actually is 16 squares like a sampler, but we really didn't use. I think if anybody's watching this podcast, if you go to the beginning of the tape before our camera died, you can see part of his synthesizer setup, and there's an MPC in the shot. We weren't doing any sampling in the album.
No,
Yeah,
not on this one.
yeah. So
oh, okay.
maybe it was
It's
just
subconscious, maybe, or just an
yeah,
happy
it's
accident.
where we're headed. It's where we're going.
No, I remember I talked to you, Ryan, about the project you guys were doing, and you put a crazy time schedule on, like time limit on it. Like you said, we're gonna. That was Stefan.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not me.
What was it? What was the?
This is Dr. Deadline over here.
Okay, what's the purpose of being that strict on yourselves? Is there some kind of, is like an artistic reason for that, or why why did you set such a, I mean, it was an insane schedule from what I
Yeah,
heard
for
from
me,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, we started recording like half a year before that. So we had a lot of material, and then we sat down.
Yeah, miles of tape.
We sat down straight. I think you had time off. I took 2 weeks off, so we buried ourselves in this room for like 2 weeks straight,
Yeah,
working on
so
things.
February.
So that was 2 full weeks of work we had cut out, and then I think that was end of February, early March.
Yeah, and
February.
then I had to go back to work.
Mm,
And then things started dragging a little bit. I think that's why you
yeah.
put your foot down. Like,
And
let's just get
then,
this
yeah,
finished.
then I was thinking of, because typically it's one big problem. That's not only in music, it's every artist that has bigger things going on is just finishing things.
Right.
So I suggested this, okay, we have a deadline. It was 5th of May. Then we want it to be out. So let's just make something, and whatever we have until the time we need to put it to Apple Music, Spotify, wherever. At that point, at some point, we need to declare it finished, more or less, no matter the state. So that was the challenge behind it, and I
Yeah.
think it worked out pretty well.
I think it worked
Yeah.
out really well. Actually, I'm going to say it again. That's one of the things that's nice working with Stefan. His background sense, I mean, you've always worked for yourself, like more or less. You're like
Yeah.
he's self-directed, you know.
Mhm.
So that's how his work life goes. But it really pays off when you're doing a creative project because nothing's ever finished, right?
No,
You can
no,
always, you know, you can always like re-wet the brushes and go at it again. You can always
Yeah.
keep doing something. But forcing like this is the deadline, put it in the can, it's really great, not just to be able to have something, you know, finished and put on the side, but when you're doing a continuous project, you know, you want to make another thing. Got ideas for other songs, we want to make other records, concepts, you know, and you don't get to approach that until you get this other thing put away, like, you know, mentally. It's you're
Yeah,
all stuffed up.
but
You
it's
got
hard to
things all
stay
over the
excited
place.
about the thing that you're finishing, and it's really easy to get excited about that new thing, that new shiny project,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah, it's so much
that's
fun to make a riff. It's so much fun to make a
yeah,
riff,
yeah.
but organizing it into a song, that's like a whole nother
Hmm.
level,
Yeah,
right?
and then putting the
The
polish
discipline.
on it, like you did. I mean, the album sounds so, it sounds professionally engineered. I mean, there's no, I couldn't, you know, tell the difference between a home studio and a proper, you know, I don't know, whatever Justin Bieber's engineer, you know, is or whatever. I mean, it
Thank you for comparing
sounds,
us to Justin
yeah,
Bieber.
yeah,
I've
sorry,
been
that was
waiting
like
for
a,
that for the whole
it's like a
interview. I'm like,
backhanded, you don't sweat much for a fat girl, you know? Yeah, backhanded compliment there. But apologize for that. No, but it really did sound well polished, and I'm just wondering, like, how, you know, how do you cut the cord on that when you know that you could do, oh, I could change this, I could tweak this or whatever. Do you just pull the band-aid? Is that it?
I mean,
how did we do it? We had a lot of
well,
mixing sessions.
I think also like this might be one interesting point to turn in here. One thing that through all my work I've been doing all my life is one thing I've really learned is being very pragmatic and finding solutions to a problem very quick. This is how the video was done. This is how the album art was done in the end, without having too much thought in it. It's just finding a solution for the problem
Mhm.
because we have other things to work with. And I think this is also why I try to set the deadline so tight, because there are going to be phases where you maybe would want to drift off, have other ideas, or where you get frustrated, and
Yep.
especially in the end phase where it's not everything is kind of finished, but you need to get the sound right. And we had a few problems in some regards, and I think the deadline really helped there because we never really fought or anything, but I think we had some tensions going on and some
Mm.
disagreements on some spots. And
There's still like
yeah,
moments I listen to the album. There's still moments where um I listen to the mix of a couple of songs and I know that I could do it better. I know the way I want to move things now. And it's like, God damn, if I just had one more week, I
Mm,
could have made that perfect. But I'm actually not disappointed because what was more important was finishing it.
yes.
And yeah,
And probably you're probably the only person on the planet, or the two of you maybe, that would even think that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You're your harshest critic, you know? I mean,
It's easy to say that when you're in that phase, you know, because all of this is self-produced. We didn't have another engineer come in. We didn't have anybody else to look at this. So at the most, we had the mastering was
I think we used
what was it?
I don't know.
It's an
We used
AI.
we used one of the AIs for the final master,
Yeah,
which
oh
works quite
yeah,
nice
okay.
if you prepare the mix.
yeah. But even with that, when you're even if you're using an AI for mastering, you still have choices to make. When you get multiple masters back, and you have to think, okay, which of these and why, and you know, we're testing on a different system. He's got a couple, you know, he's got monitors here. I got monitors in my place, working on headphones, and it's just like, okay, what is good enough? What is? And you got your face up to the glass. You can't see anything anymore.
Yeah.
You can't back up. You're just toasted. Your mind is just scarred. You
Yeah.
know? I think it took a month of not listening to the album before I could actually hear the album. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because you're in it. You can't get out of it.
yeah.
There's, I think I've kind of cracked a code today in some ways. Like, e- electronic music is basically, I'm not basically, but you're making like a thousand decisions. Like, instead you're whittling down. It's like sculpting, right? You've got all the choices, and now I have to decide, you know, what am I gonna, like you said, like you said, you noodle around for like 2 hours before you hit on a sound that you actually like. So that means 2 hours of just like, you know, no, no, pass, 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 pass. I mean, that's to me that seems a lot like almost the opposite of like guitar songwriting, you know, where you just like C, D, F, you know, I'm building something. Here you're almost taking away all these layers until you find that kind of
Hmm.
pearl that you're looking for. But I don't know, maybe maybe all music is like that, because even on the guitar, I suppose you have a lot of choices. But it just feels like it just seems like there's so many choices to make. It gives me
I felt
anxiety, you know,
I
to think
felt
about
like
it.
when we were working together, it reminded me a lot of being in a garage band in high school. That's what the first sessions were like. And now it's like we can decide to flip that switch or not. Are we going to jam? Or are we going to try to do something more specific, more intentional? But I like that a lot. One of the tools that I bought at the beginning of our time developing music, in the very beginning we started playing together, was a giant. These guys do not need a bump, but whatever. Head Rush looper board. It's a nice piece of kit. It's fun.
Yeah.
But this thing, it's gigantic. It's like 7 kilo looper pedal. And I bought it because not for really its looping function, but because it has multiple separate loops. So it's like having 4 looper pedals in one.
Mhm.
It's a 4-track. So I
Yeah.
used it like a 4-track, and it connects with MIDI. So it can be synced to everything he's got going here. So we're in time. And I wanted to mess around with a lot of delay. And because I was the only traditional instrument, I wanted to be able to have at least 2 parts. And it really became, it was just like being in a garage band where you're trying things out. I might record something into this track, and then I can just mute it. It's still going in the background. I can try something else, mute it. It's just kind of each musician being like, hey, what do you think of this lick? Hey, what do you think of this? Hey, does this go with this? Meanwhile, he's doing the same thing. He's like just going for it. And then you get those moments where it all comes together, and you're all, you're in the same like little flux, a little wave. That's awesome. That's awesome. And you let it kind of break up, and you go into the next thing.
Yeah.
It's really meditative and fun. And the struggle was going back through the tapes. I mean, that was
Right. Because the
that was
making is
epic.
the fun part. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
editing was wild.
have you guys thought about doing any live stuff? Like, can you replicate this like in a performance space? Because I know that a lot of this is like is electronic. So trying to replicate it, I even like I remember watching a Saturday Night Live version of Radiohead play Idiotech, and Johnny Greenwood is like plugging like things and pulling chords out and plugging them in, and like a musical instrument. It reminded me of like the knob you're talking about, or playing with a plug or a chord. Is it could you replicate this in a live performance?
Some of it's performative, but I mean, some of it, especially with the synthesizer, it's generative. I mean, you might be building to something that took an hour to grow, and that might be the slice that we're using in the album.
Mhm.
And with the guitar, it's kind of similar. Like one of the things that I really enjoyed doing, I discovered in this process using the guitar with that looper board. You can find it on the song Deshane. If you listen to the guitar in that beginning, I'm playing the guitar in my mind more like a piano, because I can lay down a chord individually here, and then you can let that note ring. And instead of having to worry about losing the sustain, like moving your hand, you
Yeah.
just put another layer on top. So I think there's 4 or 5 loops going on there, but they're not all at the same time. There's some are and some aren't. In my mind, I'm thinking of it as like a left and a right hand. So a lot of that's like an engineering trick, right? So how are you going to do that live?
No,
You could
right.
have part of it recorded in, you could live loop part of it, but at that point, with how many layers and how long it took to get to that thing, yeah, you're just not, it would be a different song at that point. People would be listening to you assemble it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I was just wondering if you guys had talked about like doing a live performance of the
Definitely.
album, and how that would work, given the the way that you produce it is so kind of technically dependent, that recreating that in a live performance, you'd have to find some other strategies or techniques. And so I was just wondering if you guys had talked about that. But
I mean, I think recreating the album itself is more or less impossible in that way. Recreating something that is close, at least in mood and sound style, that should be possible. But also, I think the last track, Sailor's Last Trip, would be a good example, because apart from the orchestral bit, which we put in the end, this is basically a full live performance. There are no cuts in there. This is how it was played.
okay. Yeah.
And You could
Yeah.
try to replicate it, but also if you add so many layers of sounds, of effects and things that influence themselves, it will never be the same. It will always be similar, but different in the same way.
Yeah.
So I think going for live performance with this is going to be interesting, but it's very different from many like more traditional concerts where they're just replaying their songs almost identically. That's not how it works in this. But
Yeah.
I mean, with the songs that we've produced so far, it would be just like he's saying, we could have like an impressionistic representation of each of the pieces, kind of, with more success with the ones that are more performative and less with the ones that aren't. But going forward, playing live is not something we thought about the day we started jamming together. It was just to have some fun, and then it was like, hey, you want to make an EP? Hey, you want to make a record? Hey, let's publish this, you know. And so during that process, we're like, wouldn't it be fun, you know, to get back into the clubs and do some performances and, you know, meet other musicians and, you know, get into the scene a little bit. So with that in mind, I think going forward, we kind of, the new things we're working on, we intend to make more performative so that we have that, you know.
I just want to encourage you guys, like, you should do it. You should do live. I think it'd be great. Like, even if it's not a facsimile of what's on the album, I don't think that's what people want. I think what people want is the more impressionistic representation, you know, something close to it. It still sounds like, you know, the song Deshane, or it still sounds like sorry, I keep forgetting this one. In the Daw, is that what it
Lost in the Daw.
Lost in the Daw. I keep forgetting the word lost. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think you could replicate that in, maybe not exactly, but it would still be so fascinating to hear it live. So I don't know, I just wanted to encourage you guys to consider that, but it sounds like you already have. So yeah,
hopefully we'll get it going one of these days. Oh
yeah, definitely.
What's going on there?
the GoPro is off
We
now.
got a lot of things beeping around here.
All right, well, this is probably a good time to kind of wrap up a little bit. So is there anything you guys wanted to add?
I want to
that we haven't
say
talked about?
just to all of the listeners of the Soul Patch podcast who know me as one of the guys that's usually on the Soul Patch podcast, I want to say thanks for letting us go a little off script here. Like, as Jack said, you know, preemptively, like Kev is always reminding us to keep it about Korea.
Right.
This one is kind of more about like me than Korea. But I really
you are
appreciate
in Korea. That is true.
I mean,
Yeah.
technically we're in Shinsedo right now.
And if we're going live, it will be in Korea first.
That's true.
There you go.
But I think this does dovetail nicely with the last episode where we were talking about, you know, people complaining about, or asking and also complaining, you know, what is there to do in Korea?
Yes.
You know, take a chance to get out of your bubble of wherever you are, your coworkers and the people that you came here with, or the first friends you met. There's so many people doing weird stuff. I mean, look at this guy. He's nuts. Have you seen, I mean, this guy is legitimately crazy. You know, so
I love what you guys are doing. I mean, you know, as a tinkerer myself, like my creative projects are much more vanilla. You know, they're not as cool as what you guys do. You know, Ryan, I'm the podcast guy. I love that. You know, I love doing that. I love talking to people. I love hearing stories. So, you know, making something, it is very fulfilling, and in Korea there are opportunities. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally. And I think there's more. I just think there's more here than there probably is in most people's hometowns, because it's just a giant freaking city. There's so much going on. So anyway, yeah, just to pump the album one last time. That's Spanish for Moo Moo Choo Choo. We're available on what?
Everywhere, pretty much.
Yeah, we're on Melon. We went the Korean route
you
as
guys,
well,
I saw the Korean one. Yeah,
yeah.
Melon, YouTube. You got the whole thing on YouTube. Yeah,
Spotify, Apple Music. I don't know, probably some other stuff.
Yeah.
Wherever
Flow. You're on
music.
Flow. Flow is Korean as well.
Yeah.
So
We are?
you're on those too.
No, we're on. Okay. Did not know that.
I'm your press guy also.
Right on. All right.
For our listeners out there, thank you so much for listening today. You can catch us, you can listen to the podcast on thesoulpatch.com. That's our website. If you could leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts, that would do a whole heck of a lot to help us out. And if you want to buy us a coffee, you can hit that Patreon button on our website too. So thanks a lot, everybody. And Stefan, Ryan, thanks for talking to me today.
Thank you.